Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a sound mixing tutorial. So this won't be a tutorial about beat making, but what I'm about to share does apply to any audio form, whether you're making music or in this case making movies. This is not going to be a step-by-step guide. Instead, think of this as kind of a mindset shift, a way to start thinking like a sound mixer. I'm going to be using a scene from one of my projects to kind of break this down for you, but before we do that, I'm going to come over and I want to kind of lay out visually my whole concept for this little lesson here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this box here. And this box is going to represent our sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 4 lines across this box. 1, we'll do them in different colors so it's easy. 2, 3, this is very messy, and 4. Okay, so these 4 lines I just drew represent the typical layers that are going to make up a scene for us. So this top line here represents our dialogue, which is always going to sit highest in the mix, especially if you're doing a YouTube video or whatever, your dialogue is the loudest thing. Sitting under that dialogue, the second line is our music. So that's just going to sit right under. The dialogue will usually sit around -10 on your meters. Under the dialogue, we have our sound design and Foley, which sits under the music, we have the sound design and Foley, which sits just under there. And then at the very bottom, we have our bass, which is our ambience, our winds, our sounds of the environment. So this graph here is how I used to think about sound mixing, very linear. As we can see, every line is very straight. There's not technically anything wrong with this, especially if you're doing content-based stuff, podcasts or whatever. You want your dialogue to be the loudest and all the other layers, follow suit. The big thing that shifted my whole mindset was to stop thinking about sound mixing like it's a linear process and to start thinking about it like a whole dynamic range that you can utilize. So for example, if I open now a new window and we just do the same thing again, here's our box. And we understand that in life, people whisper, people yell. The sounds of life are very loud and intrusive. Our brains are just trained to kind of cut them out. So how we're going to start thinking about this is in a much more dynamic way. So our top line here, our dialogue line, instead of going straight the whole time, it's going to dip. It's going to come up because maybe someone yells. It's going to come back down because maybe they're whispering. It's going to find a middle ground for middle talking, and it'll look like more something like this. And once you have that lined out, your other 3 aspects that create your scene, your Foley, your music, and your ambience, will simply follow suit of this. So what we're looking at now is, okay, our music is going to dip here a little bit, and then it's going to come up to match this moment, and then it's going to come back to here. Same thing with the Foley. If you have a punch or you have someone moving something that you want to accentuate, you might have your Foley line look like this. You might be going straight and then boom, you might dip up to here. You might live down here for a lot of it. And finally, the ambience. This is the only one that will stay unchanging, which I'm going to get to in a minute. And the ambience levels everything out by resting right here on the ground. So basically what you're after is keeping the dynamic range of people's voices and the sounds of life, because if you level everything at the same, the impact of a whisper is suddenly taken away, the same way the impact of a shout is taken away if everything sounds the same. So allowing yourself to understand that people are smart, and if they're engaged in your content, they will lean in and they will take that moment in of someone being quieter. Allowing your brain to think like that will give you a much more cinematic sounding sound design. But now that we've done that, I'm going to come over here into an actual scene, and I just want to kind of showcase some of this stuff in action and how all your layers nicely fit under each other. So I'm going to play each individual layer for you and kind of talk you through where these are sitting and how they're dancing together in correlation to what we just talked about. So we're going to start with ambience, because the ambience is kind of the biggest point that I want to get across here. Listen to this scene with only ambience and pay attention on these levels here on the right in the corner where they're hitting. Okay, so as you notice, that ambience is hitting around 30 on the meters, and it jumps up to maybe about 25, depending on if there's birds or what you're hearing. And that sounds very jarring to the ear on its own because it sounds very loud. It sounds very counterintuitive. Usually, when we think of sound mixing, our instinct is to denoise the audio until there's no ambience at all. But the thing that really sold this for me, and I'm going to show you as well, I'm going to look up a scene here from Atlanta. You can do this with any scene. Listen to how loud this barbershop is. Only listen to the background noises. No dialogue, no Foley. Only listen to the sound.
That's fine. She gonna get it though. You know what I'm saying? It's all good. When I get my income tax, I'm open my own shop, or I'm gonna buy my own WNBA team. One of those.
Yo, baby.
I'm not going to play it too long for copyright, but you can quickly hear that they're utilizing the sound of nothing. Even the sound of nothing has a noise. In everyday life, you will always hear sounds around you. And by understanding that that's okay for that to shine through in your sound mix, it suddenly gives you all of this room to work with the fidelity of your audio, to do more creative stuff with your sound design, because you have this very reliable base plate of noise. And really, no sound that you add onto your mix will be louder than that noise, so it'll all blend very nicely. So by understanding that it's okay to have your ambience be that loud, you will all of a sudden see a major upgrade in the cinematic quality of your sound mix. So with that said, now we have our ambience, let's go ahead and let's turn on our music. And let's just have a little listen about where that dances. So as you can hear, with now that added layer of music, our overall sound mix is now dancing in the middle of the meter. So with every layer that you're adding to your sound mix, you're essentially building the whole thing out to make it feel full, right? So with just that ambience, it was very quiet. With the music, we're now dancing in the middle. And then once we add the footsteps and the Foley here, which is very creative, there's no right way to level that kind of thing. It all comes down to how you want it to impact the viewer. So let me play this now with our 3 layers, our ambience, our music, and our sound design. So as you can hear, that scene has many little sound design moments. The idea with sound design is, for film specifically, which is what this video is about, you don't want the audience to realize there is sound design. So as you can hear, there was little clothes movements in there. There was the knocking on the door. The 2 loudest elements in that scene from a sound design perspective is her knocking on the door, her moving the suitcase, and those first footsteps. And that's a very intentional decision. Like, you don't want your clothes rustles to be competing with the sound of knocking on a door. It just doesn't make sense in reality. You know, you're basing this on life and just understanding that not every sound has to be first and foremost. They all represent a specific space and they all support each other. So with those 3 elements, we turn on our final element, which is dialogue, which will sit very nicely at the top of the mix. Let's give it a listen.
Sandra, right?
Yes, Mr. Bell.
Oh, no, please. Richard. Or Rich, just, whatever feels right.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, well, it's good to finally meet you. I hope you don't mind I'm a hugger, so.
Oh.
Yeah. Good to meet you.
same.
Yeah, well, come on in. Let me show you around.
Sure.
Yeah, I got you.
I can get
No,
that.
I insist. No, it's okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I insist. Yeah.
And now that you've seen those 4 layers in action, you can see how together they create a super cinematic sounding piece. Most of my dialogue in this scene is leveled about the same, but you can still hear where I allow it to dip and to rise, and that's okay. That's my main point with this video, is your dynamic range is your friend. Only if you're making YouTube videos does your dialogue have to be pushed to the top. If you're doing anything cinematic, allow room to breathe, allow whispers, allow yells, and find where all of your layers sit in place. That'll be all for today. Thank you.